Hey, and welcome back. Today, I want to go over something that often occurs with people in their 60s relative to retirement. And that is a question that they often have. That question is: we've saved about $350,000. Is that enough to retire? And that's a totally fair question. There is no one size fits all to retirement. That said, I want to walk through a real world example of what it could look like to retire with $350,000. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about a couple named Dave and Carol. Dave is 63, Carol is 62. Going into their income, Carol has a part time job as an admin assistant making $35,000 a year. Dave is retired. Dave's Social Security benefit, according to a statement at full retirement age, is $2,200, and Carol's is $1,900. Going into their savings, today they have no formal savings. That is investments that they're actively contributing to. Going into their expenses, they have pre retirement expenses in the amount of $4,500. Going into their net worth, we can see here that they have a total net worth of $637,000. $12,000 in the bank, like we said, $350,000 in investments. Dave's IRA is $220,000. Carol has a Roth IRA with $90,000, and they have a joint brokerage account with $40,000. Their home is completely paid off. It's also important to note that they have no other debt. Their primary home has a current market value of $275,000. And yeah, like we said, nothing else to add in here. Going into their goals, they have a retirement goal. Dave, like we said, is already retired, and Carol would like to retire at the age of 65 if possible, open to working part-time for longer. We would like to see them actually increase their monthly expense amount to $4,500 in retirement. We're going to assume a joint vacation goal here of $1,000 every year, starting today, ending at the end of their plan. We have additional expenses of $2,000 per year, starting today, ending at the end of their plan. This $2,000 is for anything you can think of: new water heater, refrigerator, washer and dryer, whatever it may be, just additional expenses that they might incur over and above their $4,500 retirement expense. So let's dive into the retirement analysis. As we can see here, today they have an 86% probability of success, assuming everything stays the way it is via our inputs. The first thing I want to look at is our investments. Going into our investments, today we have a current allocation across all of our accounts of, call it a 70-30 portfolio, assuming an annual rate of return of 8.8%. Now, in retirement, we might have a slightly different allocation. And this is where we can use our target allocation. We can either assume a balanced or moderate portfolio, again, assuming that we just tone down some of that risk and go to a more balanced portfolio. For a moderate portfolio, we're assuming a hypothetical rate of return of 8.2%, 60-40 portfolio. And for a balanced portfolio allocation, we are assuming a 50-50 portfolio with a hypothetical annual rate of return of 7.4%. So let's use this balanced portfolio for our retirement allocation. Going back to our retirement analysis, we will update this right here to be balanced. Obviously, this will, from a probability of success side of things, negatively impact our plan, but it is more realistic just given our pre-retirement and retirement allocation. So going down here, there's a couple things we can do. As we can see here, our Social Security strategy says full retirement age. That's the age of 67 for both Dave and Carol. But we have them retiring. Dave, like we said, is already retired at the age of 63, and Carol retiring at the age of 65. What does this mean? This means that they will have a gap in income from when they retire to when they collect Social Security, meaning they will be reliant on their portfolio to fund those couple years of retirement. If we go into our cash flows here, we will go through a breakdown of what this looks like. So we said that they would retire. Dave's already retired. Carol retiring at the age of 65. In 2028, we can see that they have no income flows. So this is where they're going to be reliant on their portfolio for, call it $73,000 for that 1 year, until Social Security kicks in and they start collecting for Dave in 2029, and then for both of them in 2030. This is where you see this jump in income. That said, we can see that they have a negative net flow that that lasts all the way through retirement. So even when they are making income from Social Security, look at 2030, they're still going to be pulling out $15,000 from their portfolio. So let's go back and see if we can adjust this. From a Social Security perspective, we can see here that the optimal strategy, just from a sheer benefit amount, is to collect at the age of 70, get those delayed retirement credits for both Carol and Dave. But sometimes from an income stability side of things, it just doesn't either emotionally or just make sense at all for the couple. So while yes, they can collect more, just based on their unique situation, does this make sense? So let's go back to their retirement analysis here. The retirement analysis, again, assumes that they collect at full retirement age. Let's just look at what that does if we update that to the age of 70. We go from an 81% probability of success to an 83% probability of success. Now, what happens if instead we say, hey, they're going to collect at their retirement age, meaning Dave will have already collected and Carol will collect at the age of 65 when she retires. Looking at our probability of success, we can see that this actually lowers it to a 72% with a median portfolio balance of $400,000. So what does this mean? Collecting actually at the age of just 67, full retirement age, is more beneficial for Dave and Carol. Updating this a little bit further, that's $436,000 to age 70. We actually have more just in our median ending portfolio balance if we do the age, full retirement age at the age of 67. So this is what we can see here. Today, they have an 81% probability of success. Now, one thing I want to address here on top of this is we assume that they actually upped their monthly living expenses in retirement to $4,500 from $4,250. What if we keep this at $4,250, just assuming that that expense will carry over? Well, as we can see here, this increases our probability of success to a 96% with $826,000 in a median ending portfolio balance. Now, one thing I want to address is, sure, we could play with the retirement expense and say, hey, what does it look like if you spend $4,000 or $4,250 or $4,500? But one thing I want to be mindful of is we also need to really take into consideration our healthcare expenses here. For Dave and Carol, $600 a month kind of makes sense for them across Medicare Part A, B, D, and Medigap, but I know that's on the lower end of that spectrum there. So just making sure that you strategically plan for your healthcare expenses. That is often an overlooked expense that could come back to bite you. The median healthcare expense in retirement per individual is about $6,400 per individual per year. So that, that's a healthy estimate to use and something that we could also plug into this plan. But for the sake of this plan, we're just adding it to our retirement monthly expenses and assuming around $600 per month. Another thing to keep in mind is long-term care. What happens if you end up in a care facility? How do you strategically plan for that? So that is something to be mindful of. Is it the last year of the plan, the last 2 years, the last 5 years? How are you prepared to handle that? So again, this is not a one size fits all. This is just unique to Dave and Carol. So one thing we're going to do here is look at the retirement spending. Retirement spending is often not just a stagnant $4,250 or $4,500 per month expense. Rather, we like to use the retirement spending spiral. That is, they'll have higher expenses early on in retirement because it's called your go-go years. Maybe they're traveling more, eating out more, and just doing more. They'll hit a period in retirement called your slow-go years, where they just don't do much and your expenses tend to be lower. And then later on in retirement, expenses will go up largely because of health-related issues. So let's see what that does to our plan. Well, as we can see here, we now have 100% probability of success, and our portfolio, our median portfolio balance at the end of our plan is about $1 million. Now, Dave and Carol have no big legacy goals here. So really for them, this just allows for them to know that they have flexibility in the plan. What happens if an unexpected expense comes up? How can we strategically plan for that? But as of now, looking at their portfolio and looking at how reliant they are on their portfolio. This withdrawal rate looks really healthy. Their income looks stable, and their probability of success with their ending assets is looks healthy here. So this is obviously unique for them. This $350,000 makes sense for your situation. I don't know, but I invite you to create your free retirement plan below. You can go through exactly what we just went through for both Dave and Carol and see what your situation looks like. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time.